More than 500 years ago, a ruler spread terror across medieval Europe. His enemies feared him. His legend inspired the story of Dracula. This is the true story of Vlad the Impaler.
The story of Vlad the Impaler, one of the most feared rulers in European history, began in 1431 in the town of Sighisoara, located in the region of Transylvania. At that time, Eastern Europe was a dangerous frontier where kingdoms, nobles, and empires constantly fought for power and survival. Vlad was the son of Vlad II Dracula, the ruler of Wallachia, a small but strategically important principality situated between powerful states. Wallachia stood directly between Christian Europe and the rapidly expanding Ottoman Empire, making it a crucial battleground for influence and control. Vlad's father was a member of the Order of the Dragon, a secretive knightly order created to defend Christianity from Ottoman expansion. Because of this membership, Vlad II earned the nickname Dracula, meaning dragon. His son therefore became known as Dracula, which means son of Dracula. From a young age, Vlad grew up surrounded by political tension, betrayal, and war. The princes of Wallachia often struggled to keep their thrones, as rival nobles and foreign powers constantly tried to control the region. In 1442, Vlad's life changed dramatically. His father was forced to negotiate with the Ottomans, and as a guarantee of loyalty, Vlad and his younger brother were sent to the Ottoman court as political hostages. Although they were not imprisoned in chains, they were effectively prisoners of the empire. These formative years away from his homeland exposed Vlad to Ottoman military discipline, political strategy, and brutal methods of control, experiences that would later shape the ruthless reputation he became famous for.
While living as a hostage in the court of the Ottoman Empire, Vlad the Impaler spent several years learning about the political and military systems of one of the most powerful empires of the time. The young prince was educated alongside other noble hostages and exposed to languages, warfare strategies, and the strict discipline of Ottoman rule. Although he received formal training and was not treated as a common prisoner, Vlad deeply resented his captivity. Being forced to live under the authority of the Ottomans created anger and humiliation that would stay with him for the rest of his life. During this period, he watched how the empire maintained control through fear, punishment, and psychological intimidation. Meanwhile, the situation in Wallachia became increasingly unstable. In 1447, a major political crisis erupted. Vlad's father, Vlad II Dracula, was overthrown and killed by rival nobles with support from the Kingdom of Hungary. Around the same time, Vlad's older brother was reportedly captured and brutally murdered. These events left Vlad without his family, his throne, or his homeland. Still technically a hostage, he watched from afar as others fought for control of Wallachia. For Vlad, the loss of his father and brother was more than a personal tragedy. It became a motivation for revenge. He began to believe that power could only be maintained through strength and fear. These experiences would shape the man he would become. When the opportunity finally came for him to return to Wallachia and claim the throne, Vlad would rule in a way that the world would never forget.
In 1448, the opportunity finally arrived for Vlad the Impaler to reclaim power. With the support of the Ottoman Empire, Vlad was sent back to Wallachia to claim the throne that once belonged to his father, Vlad II Dracula. The region was still politically unstable, with rival nobles constantly fighting for control. At that time, the throne of Wallachia rarely stayed in one person's hands for long. Powerful noble families, known as the boyars, often conspired against rulers if they felt their own power was threatened. Vlad quickly discovered that becoming prince was only the beginning of the struggle. His first reign in 1448 was extremely short. Although he managed to take control for a brief period, his enemies soon returned with military support from the Kingdom of Hungary, forcing Vlad to flee. Losing the throne so quickly showed him just how dangerous Wallachian politics truly were. For several years after this defeat, Vlad lived in exile, moving between different regions of Eastern Europe while searching for allies who could help him regain power. During this time, he observed the politics of neighboring states and waited patiently for another chance. Eventually, Vlad formed an alliance with the Hungarian king Matthias Corvinus, one of the most powerful rulers in the region. With new support and a stronger understanding of political strategy, Vlad prepared to reclaim his throne once again. When he finally returned to Wallachia in 1456, his rule would become far more powerful and far more terrifying than anyone could have imagined.
In 1456, Vlad the Impaler returned to Wallachia and successfully seized the throne. This time, however, Vlad was determined not to lose power again. Having learned from betrayal, exile, and political conspiracies, he decided to rule with absolute authority and ruthless discipline. One of his first goals was to eliminate the influence of the powerful noble families known as the boyars. For decades, these nobles had manipulated rulers, organized coups, and assassinated princes whenever it suited their interests. Vlad believed they were responsible for the deaths of his father, Vlad II Dracula, and his older brother. According to historical accounts and later legends, Vlad invited many boyars to a large Easter banquet. During the celebration, he suddenly accused them of betrayal and conspiracy. The older nobles were reportedly executed, while many younger ones were forced into brutal labor to build fortresses and strengthen Vlad's defenses. These actions were meant to send a clear message: the era of noble control was over. Under Vlad's rule, the prince alone would hold power. To maintain order, Vlad adopted extremely harsh punishments for crimes. Theft, corruption, and treason were met with brutal consequences. His preferred method of execution was impalement, forcing a long wooden stake through the victim's bod and leaving them displayed as a warning to others. This terrifying method earned him the name Vlad the Impaler. Soon, stories of forests of impaled enemies spread across the region, creating a reputation of fear that would define his rule.
As his rule strengthened, Vlad the Impaler became determined to protect Wallachia from foreign domination. The greatest threat to the region was the powerful Ottoman Empire, which was steadily expanding into Eastern Europe. Many nearby rulers had already accepted Ottoman control and paid annual tribute, but Vlad refused to submit. At first, Vlad had maintained a fragile relationship with the Ottoman Sultan, paying tribute as previous Wallachian rulers had done. However, as his power grew, he decided to challenge Ottoman authority directly. Around 1461, Vlad stopped paying tribute and began attacking Ottoman territories south of the Danube River. His campaign was brutal and relentless. Vlad led surprise raids against Ottoman villages, forts, and supply routes, destroying military outposts and executing captured soldiers. Historical accounts suggest that thousands of Ottoman troops and supporters were killed during these attacks. These actions were not just military operations, they were psychological warfare. Vlad deliberately used extreme violence to spread fear among his enemies. Reports soon reached the Ottoman court, describing villages filled with impaled bodies, a terrifying display meant to warn any invading army. The Ottoman ruler Mehmed II, the same sultan who had conquered Constantinople in 1453, could not ignore this challenge. Enraged by Vlad's rebellion, Mehmed II began preparing a massive military campaign to invade Wallachia and remove the defiant prince from power. A confrontation between Vlad and one of the most powerful empires in the world was now inevitable. In 1462, the conflict between Vlad the Impaler and the Ottoman Empire reached its peak. Sultan Mehmed II launched a massive invasion of Wallachia, leading an army that was far larger and better equipped than Vlad's forces. The goal was simple: remove Vlad from power and restore Ottoman control over the region. Knowing he could not defeat the Ottoman army in a direct battle, Vlad used unconventional and brutal tactics. He ordered the destruction of crops, the burning of villages, and the poisoning of wells to slow the enemy's advance. This strategy, known today as scorched earth, aimed to leave the invading army without food, water, or shelter. One of the most famous moments of this campaign was the night attack of Targovishte. In June 1462, Vlad launched a surprise night raid on the Ottoman camp, hoping to assassinate Mehmed II and throw the invading army into chaos. Under the cover of darkness, Wallachian soldiers infiltrated the camp and attacked with fierce intensity. Although Vlad failed to kill the Sultan, the attack caused massive confusion and heavy casualties among the Ottoman forces. The bold raid shocked the Ottomans and demonstrated Vlad's willingness to use unpredictable warfare. However, the most terrifying moment came when Mehmed II approached the capital and discovered what later became known as the Forest of the Impaled.
Thousands of impaled bodies, mostly captured Ottoman soldiers, were displayed outside the city as a horrifying warning. Even the hardened Ottoman army was stunned by the sight.
Despite the fear he created, Vlad the Impaler could not permanently stop the advance of the Ottoman Empire. Sultan Mehmed II continued his campaign through Wallachia, determined to remove Vlad from power. Realizing that a prolonged war against the massive Ottoman army would eventually destroy his forces, Vlad attempted to seek help from his former ally, the Hungarian king Matthias Corvinus. Vlad hoped that Hungary, which also feared Ottoman expansion, would support him in continuing the resistance. However, the political situation was complicated. Matthias Corvinus had his own strategic concerns and was not eager to enter a costly war with the Ottomans. Instead of providing immediate military support, the Hungarian king took a surprising action. Vlad was arrested. In 1462, Vlad was captured and imprisoned by the Hungarian authorities. Some historical accounts suggest that forged letters were used as justification, accusing Vlad of secretly negotiating with the Ottomans. Whether these accusations were real or simply political excuses remains debated by historians. For the next several years, Vlad remained in captivity within the Kingdom of Hungary. During this time, control of Wallachia was given to his younger brother, who ruled with Ottoman support. The once feared prince, who had terrified armies and nobles, now found himself powerless, watching from prison as others ruled the land he had fought so brutally to control.
After many years in captivity, Vlad the Impaler was finally released around 1475 by the Hungarian king Matthias Corvinus. By this time, the political situation in Eastern Europe had changed once again. The growing power of the Ottoman Empire continued to threaten the region, and experienced military leaders were needed to resist further expansion. Although Vlad had spent years imprisoned, his reputation as a fierce and determined ruler was still widely known. Matthias Corvinus eventually decided that Vlad could once again be useful as an ally against the Ottomans. With Hungarian support, Vlad prepared to reclaim the throne of Wallachia. In 1476, after years of political maneuvering and military preparation, Vlad launched another campaign to take back power. With assistance from Hungarian and regional forces, he managed to defeat the ruling prince and regain control of Wallachia for a third time. However, this final reign would be extremely short. The region remained unstable, and enemies still surrounded him on all sides. Rival factions within Wallachia, as well as Ottoman forces, continued to challenge his authority. Even though Vlad had regained his throne, the constant political struggles and military conflicts meant that his position was fragile. The man who had once terrified entire armies now faced one final and uncertain chapter in his life.
In late 1476, Vlad the Impaler once again ruled Wallachia, but his return to power was fragile and surrounded by enemies. After years of war, betrayal, and imprisonment, Vlad was determined to maintain control, yet the political landscape of the region had become even more unstable. The influence of the Ottoman Empire in the region was still strong, and many local nobles continued to oppose Vlad's rule. His reputation for extreme cruelty had created fear, but it had also created many enemies who were waiting for an opportunity to remove him. Only a short time after regaining the throne, Vlad was forced to confront another military conflict. Historical sources suggest that during a battle against Ottoman forces or rival factions loyal to them, Vlad was killed. The exact details of his death remain uncertain, but most historians believe it occurred near the end of 1476. Some accounts claim that Vlad died fighting on the battlefield, while others suggest he may have been betrayed by his own allies during the chaos of battle. According to several historical traditions, his body was reportedly beheaded after his death, and his head was sent to Constantinople as proof to Sultan Mehmed II that the feared prince was finally dead. With his death, the violent and dramatic life of Vlad the Impaler came to an end, but his legend was only beginning.
After the death of Vlad the Impaler in 1476, his rule over Wallachia came to an end, but his reputation quickly grew into legend. Stories about his extreme punishments and ruthless leadership spread across Europe, especially through German and Russian pamphlets printed in the late 15th century. Many of these early publications described Vlad as a terrifying and cruel ruler
who used impalement on a massive scale to punish criminals, enemies, and traitors. According to some accounts, entire fields filled with impaled bodies were displayed as warnings to anyone who opposed him. These stories helped create the image of Vlad as one of the most brutal rulers in history. However, not all historical perspectives portray him in the same way. In some Romanian traditions, Vlad is remembered as a strong and disciplined leader who defended his land against the powerful Ottoman Empire. Supporters believed his harsh punishments helped bring order to a region that had long suffered from corruption and betrayal among nobles. Centuries later, Vlad's name became famous worldwide when the Irish author Bram Stoker published the novel Dracula. Although the fictional vampire count was not directly based on Vlad's life, Stoker borrowed the name Dracula and the dark reputation associated with the historical prince. Today, Vlad the Impaler remains one of the most fascinating figures of medieval history, a ruler whose life existed somewhere between brutal reality and terrifying legend.